Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Eyes, titled Sugar, the remix, I think, of Sugar. And if we switch over to here, this is not the first time that I reviewed Eyes' music, but it'd be good to check out more. Apparently this production done on this remix, production from Poetiq Beetz, who apparently is a West Coast beat battle champion, so this should be good. I'm looking forward to listening through it. We're going to hear it from start till finish and hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it.
Poetiq Beetz, Poetiq Beetz, Poetiq Beetz,
Honey and cherry sugar on me. I see you in my dreams. You're so sweet, just like in reality. When you connect to understand me, but you don't see me. Still, I wanna say sugar. You're fine when you're sitting next to me in a gaze. You say hi like I wasn't even on your mind. Holding cherry sugar, baby. I want you for myself. You're so sweet, just like when I'm licking an ice cream and you're all mine. But in reality, you don't see me. You're so sweet. You can't be beat. You're on my mind, simply like all the time. Sugar on me, but in reality, you don't see me.
So let's talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Eyes, titled Sugar, the remix from production by Poetiq Beetz. Now, I think this track was about eyes looking at someone they don't have, how sweet, how sort of sugary they are, talking about how much they want them, even though they know that they aren't seen by this person, that their frustration there mixed in with that desire. So, it's a tale as old as time, works well, it's pretty easy to follow along with what's going on there. One of the things I think looks really neatly about this track is that it is so short and to the point. You have the storytelling component there, and then more of a kind of a summation of it in a different tone of voice around that minute mark, which I think is great, going back to the hook line so you don't forget it near the end. And then we're just bouncing at 1 minute 20. You got this kind of like, it sounds like someone's like tapping on a bottle or something like that. Some interesting percussion sounds mixed in with some really sort of soft, dreamy keys there with Poetiq Beetz with the sign on there. And we bring it in with some further bass and drums. Or rather, we don't. We don't have the bass come in. It's just there's the sound or the resonance of the pads in that low end with the vocals very, very high and the ridge there. We'll talk about the production in a moment. But yeah, I like how punchy the kicks are, making the most of the lack of that bass resonance there for an actual bass instrument. Because don't get me wrong, there is an 808 that comes in a bit later on there, and that's nice and sort of like smooth in the mix as well. It's very much not about the attack of it, it's more about the kind of like the sound of it, the almost aura that it projects into the arrangement. You can hear that steady rumble underneath everything else going on over top. And there are these little kind of jingly kind of like leads up top there that work nicely and niche on, well beyond what's going on with the various sort of drum fills and stuff going on there. And there's some interesting sort of like soft sub leads up where the vocals are in the range. And they're kind of going bum, 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 sort of like articulating notes of the triads and the chord progression. With some extensions going on harmonically that add a sense of complexity to the sound of the instrumental part in general, that reflects, I think, what Eyes is going through. And there's also some sort of picked alternate guitar parts there as well that come in occasionally, and they add a nice bit of tension there, and they go on underneath when Eyes kind of pops off on the mic going, "You can't be beat," etc., a little more sort of like intense and charismatic. It's a different expression there that I feel is a nice addition to that. Not necessarily sure if I understand why we have the guitar and those kind of little bells on top continuing out near the end. You could have, but then I'm not going to question it. I feel like it's just a deliberate decision on their part, especially with the track being so short, just to keep things succinct. But I feel like it's a combination of both the shortness of the track, getting straight to the point, cutting to the chase, giving different angles vocally there, whilst the ground beat of various instrumental stuff in the background provides a complex harmonica, sort of like aesthetic that also, I think, has those necessary R&B inclusions and fleshes out the frequency spectrum really neatly, with enough variety with where things come in and out to make the most of the 120 minutes with even how short it is. And I think finally what I want to talk about is I's vocals. I think that they're well handled technically in the mix. You know, they're nice and resonant. They're never too much. There is a sense of sensuality with the way that we communicate in those verse and chorus sections. And then we sort of call out more in that minute mark there, which just is a nice sort of switch up there. It shows that we're able to do different vocal styles, and when it's your first impression, or if it is your first impression, you want to hear that range immediately, even if it is short form factor. It makes sense when they've been discussing the kind of maybe the frustration they've had at being seen by this person, then they call out like that, you know. Yeah, I get it. I think like there's legato passages and really adequate or adept use of head and chest voice there, a little bit of vibrato occasionally. There's a sweetness to the vocal style, expression wise, that makes sense there. If I was to say anything in the high end, it's like we've added a lot of high end in the vocals, almost to an extent where like they sound a little bit like too far away from other parts of the mix. I understand that we're trying to sort of niche it in the high end there to contrast to what we're doing sort of like stereo image wise on the sides as well as the lower bass parts in the low, but we're clearly in a different vocal range there. So we wouldn't necessarily be competing with that. It's just an interesting decision to add that much high end in the EQ section of the vocal production to make it sound almost kind of sharp in certain components. It could be like a deliberate filtering technique to get a different sort of like tone or to kind of make it stand out a bit more. I'm not saying that it was produced poorly at all. Like, I like how things are leveled in the mix. I think things surround you nice and wide in the stereo field there. I don't feel the vocals are overreduced. I think they allow eyes to do what they need to do as well as sit niche so neatly into the arrangement. It's nice and loud without pumping, and I have to commend the way that we really sort of made this track sound huge with, again, the panning of things and having this space there almost that the person isn't in, with the kicks and bass down the low and kind of by themselves away from eyes. It's a really interesting, creative song in terms of the post stuff. It's just my thoughts on this way that the vocals, the EQing sounded, not the vocal performance itself. So ultimately, those are my thoughts on this track. It's a really interesting piece there. Sugar Remix production by Poetiq Beetz from Eyes. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias. And I think they go under @Eyes on the various platforms. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.